Welcome to the Leader Impact Podcast. We are a community of leaders with a network in over 350 cities around the world, dedicated to optimizing our personal, professional, and spiritual lives to have impact. This show is where we have a chance to listen and engage with leaders who are living this out. We love talking with leaders, so if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions to make the show even better, please let us know. The best way to stay connected in Canada is through our newsletter at leaderimpact.ca or on social media at LeaderImpact. If you're listening from outside of Canada, check out our website at leaderimpact.com. I'm your host, Lisa Peters, and our guest today is Carol LaFayette-Boyd. For the second time in her athletic career, Carol of Regina has been named the World Masters Athletics Female Athlete of the Year. In 2022, Carol broke 6 world records in the women's 80-plus category. In total, she has 17 world age group records to her name. And to put her astonishing athleticism and talent in perspective, Carol ran a 16.23 second 100-meter race. The fastest woman ever has ran a 10.49 second 100 meters. And I'm pretty sure she was a lot younger. A retired social worker, Carol did not start running until her late 40s and didn't win her first competitive track event until she was 50. This great-grandmother of 4 has no plans to slow down or hang up her spikes. She plans to continue running for the rest of her life. Carol's key to longevity is her passion for staying healthy that keeps her training at her best. She says she's inspired by the women who are competing in the 100-plus age category. She says she has lots of time to do that, and for right now, she would just like to stay healthy and do better in her times in all events. Please welcome to the Leader Impact Podcast, Carol LaFayette-Boyd. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Lisa.
You know, we've known each other for many years. You've come on my other show, and there's things I didn't know about you. So I'm super excited to have you here today to maybe dive deep into some other questions. So thank you again for joining us. So my first question is always sort of that personal, tell us a little bit about yourself growing up. And I know sort of from a little bit of your story, your parents have been very involved. So tell us about growing up and maybe a life lesson or a few life lessons your parents have taught you along the way.
Well, the one that I remember the most is because our family was the only Black family in the area. Mm-hmm. And I think that my father and his siblings had been called names, like the N-word. And by the time us kids came along, I think people had learned not to do that. But I think there still was some of that going on, because what my parents taught me was that if anybody calls you a name, it's because they feel bad about themselves. Mm. And that lesson stuck with me for the rest of my life, because I do not recall anybody as a child, a youth, calling me a name. They may have, but if they did, it wasn't important to me because I knew they feel bad about themselves, so I'd probably feel sorry for them. I did, when I got into nursing, get called names, but that was okay too.
Just water off your back.
Yeah, a couple of other lessons were like, one, don't say anything about anybody, and don't say anything. How did it go? If you can't say something good about someone, don't say anything at all. Yeah. And that really resonated me with, except when I was maybe stressed out a bit, I would probably join others in gossip or something. But that was a good one, because I still don't like to talk about other people. Mm-hmm. And I definitely do not talk about my family. So I can't. I may talk to a brother or sister, and we say, because we're concerned about another sibling or a nephew or niece, and talk about them in that way, mainly from the point of how do we help, what can we do, not from their behavior and they don't belong in the family and that kind of thing. But
and were your parents like that? Like they never talked about anybody. It was sort of you just saw that. That's what you saw growing up.
Yeah, and they were very welcome in having people come to our house. Like I remember they would invite the local teachers and the local pastors and other people. And one good story is there was a man that sold fish in the kind of the neighborhood, in the the Rosetown area. And his name was John, and everybody called him Fish John, because he in the wintertime, he would gather fish, and then, well, I guess he was an ice fisher, and then he would come and sell them to the local farmers. But because of the having fish around him, he really smelled. Oh. And he wasn't really welcome in people's houses, but he was welcome at our house. But the only thing that he had to do was to have a bath. And my parents would leave when he would have the bath, because we had a 2-story house with probably 2.5 bedrooms in it, and then the living room and the kitchen downstairs. No running water, no electricity, so you'd have to bath in a bathtub. So he was bathing in the living room, and the pipe up from the coal stove had to have a whole empty area around it. My brother was throwing things at him. And the poor man got so annoyed, he packed up and was going to drive away in the horse and sleigh. And I'll never forget my couple of brothers and a sister running after him. Please do not go, because they knew we'd get in trouble. I don't remember what happened, but that's a story I always tell the family whenever we get together, because I wasn't one of the bad ones. So
you
tell that story.
You were never one of the bad ones.
Yeah.
So you grew up on a farm, but then you moved into town. I think you were like 14 years old. And when you went to high school, you moved in from a farm. We're in Saskatchewan. There were not many Black people. But even in high school, were you the only Black person?
Well, first, though, on our farm, we had to attend a one-room schoolhouse. And the first year that I attended, they closed it after that, because there were only 5 children going to the school, and they were all my brothers and sisters. So they had to close the school, and we had to go 7.5 miles to the town school in Anglia. And so that was for a couple of years there. And then we moved to Rosetown, and there we moved to Rosetown because my mother was ill. She was diagnosed with an enlarged heart, but it turns out it was cancer. And she passed away in 1955. So then we moved to Regina, because my dad had lost the farm, but my brother was able to buy that back. So that was really good. And so we moved to Regina, and we were the only family that I know that was Black. There was one other woman that I believe she worked for a lawyer. So we were the only people, it seemed, in the city.
Wow.
But there had been people here before. Like my grandfather had come here in 1906, and then my dad was born right here in Regina in 1907, okay, but had moved out to the Rosetown area, homesteaded. And so there were a lot of people that had left the places like Maidstone, like the Shiloh people. They had come to Regina, and they were here probably until just a year or two before we got here. Mm-hmm. I found that out later, that they had been here. Yeah. And so, but I think there was a couple of families at that time, but they left.
Wow. So did you find it difficult to be, because you say, I think when people called you names, you just never heard it, or you just thought they think bad about themselves. How did it feel coming to a high school at 14?
I really missed my friends.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure how I didn't have any issues with it. But what I found out later was that, well, probably even after, maybe 20 years ago or so, that Wilma Downing, I don't know if you've heard of her, but she was a great coach, and she was my homeroom teacher. And what she had done, I found out, was she told the class, because we didn't come until November 1st. We left. I remember leaving Rosetown in the snowstorm. First I'd ever seen a snowstorm on October 31st. So when I got to the school, apparently she had told the kids that this girl coming from a small town, and you guys be nice to her. And I asked them, did she say I was Black? And they said no. Of course, Black wasn't the word then. It was colored or Negro. She hadn't said that. She just said there was a girl coming. And they were that class, that 1C class, were just the most wonderful group of kids. And one of them was my best friend until she passed away, and a couple of the others in the other grade 9s that we had to bus it. What happened is, first we lived on a little farm and had to walk to get to a bus, just on the outskirts of Regina. But everybody west of Pasqua Street had to bus it to Sheldon because we couldn't go to Scott because it was too full. So you had these West End kids going to Sheldon, and that was the first time I found out about class, because that's where the rich kids were, was in that South End. But the rich kids were nice too, and so it was just a real pleasure going to Sheldon Williams, and because I was good in track and basketball. There were others better than me, maybe not in track, but definitely in basketball, and I couldn't. I wasn't on the softball team because I couldn't bat or catch, but they asked me to come out and run the bases for them. So that was kind of fun.
Because you're a fast runner. That Wilma Downing, that's a great story, because in our city, she's an icon, right? So that's a great story. Now, moving on to a bit about your professional career, you became a psych nurse, and, from what I've read, you worked with patients in a mental health ward. Then you became a social worker, and you worked with children of abuse and neglect. How did you maintain your own mental health? You work with, that's my question.
Yes. I always believed in myself, and my faith helped with that. But in Weyburn, when I first arrived there, you had to work on the ward as part of being a student. And so you'd go to class for a couple of hours and work on the ward. And if you worked evenings or nights, after the patients had gone to bed, they would set up an area between two wards so that they take turns doing the rounds. And the nurses would tell you these horror stories. And I used to be just petrified. And being the student, you'd have to take the books, the ward books, to the main office. And they'd always make the student do it. So I remember walking down the corridors, they're really dark, through all the other wards, and saying, I'm not afraid, I'm not afraid, I'm not afraid. And nobody ever did anything. It was just the horror stories that they gave to you. But I thoroughly enjoyed my time nursing. There were a couple of events that were not pleasing, of the way that patients were treated. But when I went to the criminally insane ward, I remember thinking, because they had talked about, and the other thing about that was I was the first female in 6 months that they put on that criminally insane ward. And I knew I wasn't going to survive the first day, because they had stopped females going there. And I remember unlocking the door thinking, this is my last day on earth. And particularly because there was one man that was would get up on the kind of the windowsill and jump on you and stuff like that. So I remember unlocking that door just in pure fright. But because I was the only female and a student, they had me do the medications. So they put you there with a cart, and the only person they had me help was one of the people who, most of the people on the criminally insane ward had not really committed bad offense. There had been 3 who had murdered people, mm-hmm. and they were the most sane on the ward. So they had one of those help me figure out who the names of each person I was giving the medication to. And I remember giving a couple of people, because their last names were wrong, I gave them the wrong medicine. But then when it came to this man that was going to jump on me, I remember he said his name. And I looked up because I knew this 10-foot tall man was going to just smash me right there. And I remember looking up, and I tell you, any fear I had, I could feel it just draining out of my body, because it had to take less than a couple of seconds, I'm sure, because I looked across at me at a shriveled up old man that couldn't hurt a soul. Oh. And all fear from that moment on was gone from me. And the only thing is, I did avoid him a lot, because I would come in and I would watch, because they would often parade around the thing, the floor. And so I would watch to see when he did his pass parade. And then I'd open the door and go in, because anytime he'd see me, he would come and hug me and slobber all over me. So it was quite a switch. And that was a good lesson too about fear. You did fear what people tell you.
Yeah. You clearly lived through it. And I like, you mentioned you were walking through the halls and you're repeating to yourself, I'm not afraid, I'm not afraid. Do you do that now? Do you have affirmations that you like? Did that continue in your life?
Yes, I think it does because right, right now with some of the family stuff that I'm going through, and even the phone call, you might when you try to make a phone call to deal with an issue, and they put you on hold. I do love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. And as I feel myself getting ready to do, and I love, joy, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, self-control, faithfulness, self-control. Yeah, I do that a lot throughout the day. As soon as something comes up that I know that it shouldn't be something I do not care about, I cast my cares, and that's one of them I use a lot.
Yeah. When I ran a lot, I used to be, I think I can. Is that an engine that could? I don't know. Yeah. Yours is good though. So you currently work, Carol, you're 81. You currently work at the Saskatchewan African Canadian Heritage Museum, and that's where we met as their executive director. Because this is just a great question for you, but how do you define professional success?
I think I had to write that one down. Professional success. I think it's for working with the Saskatchewan African Canadian Heritage Museum is actually meeting the goals of the organization. And one of the goals is to recognize the contribution of people of African descent to the province. Mm-hmm. So I'm always kind of looking out for that to see who can we recognize.
Yeah.
But we do all other kinds of things, but that's the big thing.
Yeah. I know that I'm amazed when you come on our show and tell us more, and you do a great job there. So congratulations. And I don't, when will you ever stop? Do you think you'll ever stop working, or is this like, you love it, so why would you?
Oh, I've been looking for a paid executive director for years, but I'm kind of, as I thought about it, like the person that got me involved in it, I was always telling, whenever I'd see him, I'd complain to him, look what you've done to me, kind of thing. I'm still here. You left. And then I got to realizing that if I hadn't done all of these things that I've done with SACM, I wouldn't have met all these wonderful people like yourself and all the people that I've been meeting, especially the organizations I've been involved in through COVID. I wouldn't have been there to do that. So, and now I have more for my book too that I plan to write when I'm probably 100.
Yeah,
I'm going. So,
I recently took a trip, and my uncle had told my brother told me about retirement. He says, you have to retire to something. Too many times we retire and we just quit, we walk away. And if whoever's listening, if you're 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever it's a transition, you move to something else. And I feel that when I talk to you, it's like, look at all the people you've met working with SACM, it's so great. And it was just a different thing, because you were a psych nurse and a social worker and now doing amazing things for SACM. So we're going to switch a bit because we're just going to talk about the amazing athlete you are. You have won numerous provincial, national, and international awards and broken world records. So let's just focus on that for a hot minute. I'm going to read this. In 2018, you were chosen as the World Masters Athletics Overall Female Athlete of the Year and the World's Masters Runner-Up Female Jumper of the Year. You became the first Canadian of African descent to receive this award. And then, of course, last year, 2022, you were chosen as the World Masters Athletics Overall Female Athlete of the Year. You are the world's fastest female runner at 80 years old, right? Like, let's let that sink in.
Actually, I'm tied. There's a gal from California that's tied with me on that.
Whoa.
So this weekend, I hope I'm going to do better. If not, I've still got 2 more tries throughout the summer. So
okay, good. Yeah. How did it all begin for you? The running, I mean, you were a track star, but you kind of got back in when you were almost 50. So
right. Well, what happened is my husband and I, we live at the back of a park, and so we thought we had to stay in shape. So we'd go out, and our goal was to be able to run a mile. And we heard that the Canadian Masters Games were going to be in Regina. And part of the Masters games, not just golfing or tennis, was track and field. And I couldn't believe it. I didn't know that older people could do track and field. Well, because this running thing, like I'm not really jealous of these people that can run and run and run and run, but I find it unreal how anybody can just keep going like that. But so I thought, well, here's a chance, and it's right here in Regina. I won't waste any money by traveling and make a fool of myself, and I'll just make a fool of myself at home and not have cost me anything. So I contacted Wilma Downing, and because she was still involved with, I think, coaching at that time, and she got in contact with the Regina Athletic Track Club, called Rat Club then. And I ended up with a couple of coaches, and the one coach, he was really good with me, except he knew I didn't know what I was doing and that I had to be careful. So he would make me run 150 kilometers during practice. So the event came, and all I entered was the 1 and the 2. And the first event was the 200. And there was only a person from Ontario and people from Ontario and Quebec there. So because I had no time, they put me in lane 2, and they were in lane 3 and 4. And I thought, oh, well, if I could catch these guys on the curve, I could beat them, not knowing that lane 2 is the worst lane to have be. I think if I'd known that, maybe I'd have felt different. Well, I have to just catch them on the curve, and it was raining, and I grew up in a farm, and I know what it's like to run in the rain. So I thought, well, I can take, if I could pass them on the curve, I can take them. Well, I did. I passed them on the curve. But at 150 meters, I was just like, I'd never run more than that, and it was hard. And I could hear my sister-in-law up in the stand just screaming at me to keep moving. And I won the race. The interesting thing is I won that race in 30-something, I do believe. Or it was 32. Yeah, it was 32:72, I think I ran that race. And by the time I was 65 and really retired by that time, and we were really working hard at track and field. There were 5 of us at that time, 5 women. So 15 years later, I'd run it in 32:72, I think. And in 15 years later, I ran it in 29.
Wow.
82 to break the world record for 2 weeks. So that's
amazing. 15 years later, and you're still shaving off time. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know what you mean about those really long runners. Those are special people too, to run those marathons 42 kilometers later.
Goodness.
Yeah. But yours is not easy. I'm not a sprinter, so yeah.
Yeah, no, but it's over and done with. Like, and the same with the 100. The Ontario gal had dropped out, and I was in lane 4, and the other gal was in lane 2, and she said, I don't want to run in this lane because there's water. And by this time, having run like I did, my ankles were swollen, and I did have a pain in my side. And I thought, no, this girl is going to make a fool of herself for sure. But I think the other gal got put off because of the water. But they also said running in lane 2 is the Canadian champion with the time of 15.1. And I just ran it in 16.1. Oh man, this is not going to be good. But I ran it in 15.17 and won. So, and then I think when I was 75, I think I ran it in 15:03.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you have traveled around the world competing. What lessons have you learned from competing around the world? Meeting people, meeting different races, just lessons.
Yeah, athletes really enjoy, I think, doing track and field. I haven't met anyone in my age class that, is overly competitive to being mean or anything like that. And because the one that strikes me most is the gal from Germany, how with my jumping, like I'm very careful about my long and triple jumping. I never took it up till I was 59. And so I'm very careful. I've never had injuries to my knees, so I don't practice jumping except on my trampoline. I practice my run up and then do my jumps on the day of the meet. And so she knows I don't know what I'm doing kind of thing. And for at least 3 of the track meets I've been with her, she's had to coach me to get to the right spot. And one of the times that she coached me, she was winning. And by her coaching me, I did win. So I kind of appreciated it
Wow.
when I had to go to Budapest, not Budapest, but to Toronto, Poland, to receive my award in 2019. For the 18, I hadn't enrolled in time to compete, and so she was there, and it was nice to see her get the gold.
Oh man,
yeah.
I mean, that's it. It's good to know that maybe, because right now I'm thinking, if you're 30, 40, 50, maybe you are a little bit competitive. I mean, as leaders, we are to, lead people, and we're to serve the people. But as you get older, it's nice to hear that, we're 80. Let's just do this. Like, how exciting we get to do this. You just said a comment, it's never too late. I think that could be the name of your book. I just wrote that down. It's never too late.
Okay.
I'll send that to you.
Okay.
So do you think, I think your birthday, is your birthday coming up, or is?
Yes, it is.
Like,
I'm thinking I'm still 80. I'm going to be 82.
You're going to be 82. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you think
so? Because I was born, no, I'll be 81. Yeah, I'm born in 42. Yeah, I'll be 81. I am 80, so that's okay. I am 80. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you think you'll ever stop? Or are you just you're going to be in that 100+ category?
I suppose that's my competitive spirit. But there's a gal in the States who's 107. She's still running. Another two, one is 106. The other two are 106, one in India and another one in the United States. And I'm just going to follow them. And I mean, if she keeps going next year, it's 108. So whatever, I got to keep up with her.
You got like forever. Like 25 years. This is great.
Yeah.
So in our podcast, we usually sort of, we do the personal and professional. We're going to switch to the spiritual. And, I never knew this about you till I saw you speak. And I know you talked a lot about loss, and you've experienced a lot of great loss in your life. And the ones I'll just list, but I know there's more, is your daughter and son passed away in 2013 and 2014, and your husband passed away in 2015. And please accept my condolences. When I hear your story, because I know there were others, you've spoke of them. How did you get through this and be who you are today, Carol? I mean, you're amazing.
Yeah. I think the big thing is I know where they are. Like they are in a better place. And I know that, they're walking on streets of gold, if that's really what it's all about. And I think that's it, just knowing they're in a better place. Like I miss them, like everything. And I was talking to a friend, and he was talking to me about how I'm doing with track, and that it must be a lot of fun. And I said to him, well, I don't really care anymore, because they're not here, and I don't really care. And he said, but you have to, Carol. He says, it's important. You have to care and think about who you're doing that race for and whatever. And I thought, okay, I guess I could do that. So I'm going to run for my dad, my mom, my sister, not my sister, my brother, my son, my daughter, my nephews. Yeah. So
do you have a ritual before a game? Do you say a prayer? Do you go through something? Do you have that?
Well, first of all, like every morning I get up, unless I have to rush out the door, I read Psalm 91 for the protection. That's the protection psalm. I read that before I even get off my bed, basically. Then I go downstairs. I would take my vitamins and stuff. I go downstairs. I ride my bike, and I read the Bible. Right now, I'm reading the Torah. My sister has a Torah club, and so I'm reading those booklets. That's really quite interesting. And I have a prayer list of all my family. Like there's 90 of us, the blood kind of thing, and then there's all of the in-laws and stepchildren and just everybody, you name it. It's like 6 columns of about 40 people each column, and I go over that every morning, and I pray for them. And then while I'm riding my bike, and then I do my weights. But on the days I don't have track, then I'll ride my elliptical and jump on my trampoline and all that. So that's kind of my rituals in the morning. When I go to track for for a track meet, like what I will be saying when I get down in the blocks, I'll be saying, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And greater is he who's in me than he's in the world. So hopefully I won't get hurt in doing this stuff. And the same with the jumps. As I get ready to go, I can do all things. I can run through a troop and leap over a wall. Although I don't do high jump anymore, so I don't have to leap over a wall. So that's good.
I think you leap walls every day. You're very disciplined in your morning ritual, from getting up to, what you do, just listening to it. That's a discipline. Were you always, when you look back on being a high school track student, being a psych nurse, being a social worker, have you always been disciplined?
Like that? No, not at all. I didn't keep exercising. Although when I was started in social work, I did go to Spa Lady and try to keep in shape. But no, not like that. No. And like my house needs to get in order physically because I have papers all over the place trying to get things done. But the other thing I do after I've ridden my bike downstairs, I come up and I do my stretching. And one of the things I found is doing the plank. Oh, I don't like that plank. Really. But I make myself do it for 2 minutes, and I'm proud of myself that I make myself do that.
Wow.
I really do not want to do that one, but that's the one I make sure I do. And my back is really good because of that.
Yeah.
But also while I'm doing those stretching, I watch Christian TV, and that's really encouraging. So
yeah. And what do you do when you're planking? Are you singing a song? Are you reciting something?
1001, 1002, 1003. Please, 1004. Get it over with.
So was there ever a time that you wanted to ever give up? Has that ever crossed your mind?
I think way back when I was in nursing, I thought of like when my first husband, our relationship wasn't the best. And I thought about sort of giving up, I think, one time there. So that's about it. Yeah.
And what do you do? What do you, because I think of setbacks in life. Everyone has setbacks. And it's how, sometimes it just doesn't happen. There's a million little things that happen to get to that big setback. Yeah. But how have you ever got out of it? Or what do you say to yourself? Or do you go somewhere? Do you go somewhere in your head? How do you get out of negative thinking?
I guess for me, anything that has been a setback, I look at it as a setup, because it's just an opportunity to trust God that things are going to get better. And I know, like, I've been in at least 3 or 4 situations with my work, because I think sometimes I have too much integrity, and that doesn't go well sometimes. And I know that that one position, like, it was just really hard. I'd come home and cry, but I'd get through the day because I'm not going to let those people see me cry because of the way I'm being treated. But I'm so grateful for that. I'm just so grateful for that, because I wouldn't have believed that people could treat another person that way, especially like your coworkers. And so I've been able to be there for people who were in that same situation, and because most people don't believe what you're saying when you go through a situation like that. Like, they can't be that bad. I know those people. Oh, come on. You're just being sensitive or whatever. Like, they wouldn't do that. And I would have said that myself. In fact, I had said that before. Like, boy, that person is so sensitive, like, whatever, working with certain people. But it was, and I so appreciate it. I just so appreciate it. I went through that.
Good. So you have actually spoke at Leader Impact events. I think you gave grace at one event, but you know that we are dedicated to leaders having a lasting impact. So as you continue through your own life journey, and you've got another 40 years to go, Carol, have you considered what you want your faith legacy to be when you leave this world?
Well, I think that people could say that Carol was a person of faith, a person of integrity, a person who walked in love, and cared about others. Yeah.
That'd be a good thing to say about Carol. It's good. And my final question I ask all my guests is, what brings you the greatest joy?
Well, probably my family. Yeah, I've got 3 grandchildren and 4 great grandchildren, and then my brothers and sisters and all their nieces and nephews. Like, they're really important to me. And before COVID, I was really one that was into doing the family reunions and stuff like that. But I do a family newsletter, although I haven't done it for a few months. And so that's really important to keep the family engaged and know all about each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are they all within distance from you or same city or?
No, my grandchildren are in Alberta and BC.
Okay.
And I have a brother in Ontario. My granddaughter is from Ontario, but she's here with me right now. So that's a real treat.
Nice.
And yeah, but my cousins, like they're basically all in Alberta. We grew up in the farms, and but they all headed west.
Yeah. Well, we have video conferencing, we have everything to like texting. We can stay connected. We just have to make an effort. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've had a few family Zooms, so that's been good. And it's probably time for another one.
Yeah. We just got my mom. She is 87, and we got her an iPad, so we get to FaceTime her, and it's fun. And she's so excited. She doesn't matter. She doesn't care what she looks like. She is answering that call.
Yeah,
it's so good. Carol, I want to thank you for joining us, sharing a little bit about your story. You are just one of those people that finds good in everything, and I love being around people like you because it's just you find goodness in everything. And thank you for sharing your story with maybe someone who is struggling to find that goodness. So,
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
So now this ends our podcast, but I just want to ask you if anyone wants to engage with you or look you up, or what would be the best place to find you?
I'm not very good with Facebook because the first time I started responding to something, I invited a bunch of people in the summertime to a New Year's Eve party. So not so good for Facebook, but I might respond if they maybe within a month or two. But on our SACM website, the phone number and the email there will take them to me.
And is that www.sachm?
Yeah.
.org. All right. Well, there you go. That's how you can reach Carol.
I'm also in the phone book, actually.
But if we're from around the world, Carol.
Yes.
We're going to have to go to your website. So
yeah.
Thank you again. And I know I've Googled your name and I found your whole track history. Like you're on there. So it is amazing. Thank you again. And we will be chatting soon. I appreciate you. All right.
Yeah.
So I want to thank everyone for joining us as part of and being part of Leader Impact. You can always discuss or share this podcast with your group. If you are not yet part of Leader Impact and would like to find out more and grow your leadership, find our podcast page on our website at leaderimpact.ca and check out our free leadership assessment. You will also find on our webpage Chapter 1 of Braden Douglas's book, Becoming a Leader of Impact. It is an amazing leadership book. You can also check out groups available in Canada at leaderimpact.ca, or if you're listening from anywhere else in the world, check out leaderimpact.com or get in touch with us by email, info@leaderimpact.ca, and we will connect you. And if you like this podcast, please leave us a comment, give us a rating or review. This will help other global leaders find our podcast. Thank you for engaging with us, and remember, impact starts with you.